Joining us now to talk about the new listing of Stor-Age as well as some of the plans going forward for the business is the Chief Executive, Gavin Lucas. Of course, he joins Gary and myself right here at the desk. Gavin, congratulations on your listing. It's an interesting time to come into the market. We've been talking about how much pressure this particular economy is under. Maybe let's just talk us through why you've decided to go ahead and do it right now.
Yeah, well, it's first of all, in terms of timing the listing, it's near impossible to be able to time it perfectly. But taking a step back, there are two primary reasons why we've come to market. The first being that we believe that it was an opportune time to come to market, to strengthen our balance sheet, which would allow us to put ourselves in a very prime position to take advantage of both acquisition and development opportunities going forward so that we could continue to grow our portfolio in a sustainable manner. And the second reason is that the self-storage REITs, or our peers in the international markets of the UK, Australia and the US, have all traded exceptionally well over the last few years. And so following in the footsteps of our peers internationally, we believe that it was an appropriate step to take to bring Stor-Age to the market.
Looking at the South African market, I read some analyst commentary around storage units in general, and they said it's a very fragmented market. And I remember we used to have investors coming to us, and everyone wanted to open a small storage unit because obviously with the development of all these summer cons, people run out of space and they need to put things. I mean, you speak of development. Are you guys looking at consolidating this industry? I mean, you are the leading player at the moment.
So there's definitely acquisition opportunities which will come through. In our opinion, the market is probably at the back end of its first round of industry consolidation. So still a very young market, and most certainly there will be acquisition opportunities which we foresee will come through in the medium term. But along with that, we will continue to develop in prime locations. So our business strategy is centered off our property strategy, which is written in 5-year tranches. We concentrate and focus on South Africa's 4 main cities, being Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban and Pretoria, and right down to which arterial routes and between which landmarks or intersections where we want to be. We put all of our efforts into securing prime locations. Because at the end of the day, self-storage is no different to any other type of real estate, in that location is absolutely key. Being in a growth sector and in a very young market, ultimately competition will come through in the medium to long term. But so long as we get the right locations, then ultimately we will always be very defensive.
There's just some concerns. Speaking to some of the people in the newsroom, and they think about Stor-Age, and then Metrofile comes to mind, keeping things safe, and that fire that occurred. How is this different from what Metrofile does? I know that they keep documents. You're obviously a bit different. Maybe just give us some clarity around that. Well,
it's a great question because it talks to why self-storage has become part of the mainstream real estate market per se. And very simply, we live in the age of capitalism and consumerism where people can acquire goods at a faster rate than ever before seen in the history of mankind. And when I say goods, I'm referring to mainstream activities or items that are purchased for your home or for ourselves in our personal capacities. And where I'm going with that is that along with the densification of cities taking place, people's living and working spaces becoming more and more efficient, what you see is whenever there's a life-changing event, there becomes a need for people to store their personal stuff. So approximately 20% of our user base comes from the commercial segment, typically SMEs, as opposed to corporates who potentially might be more of Metrofile's type customers on the record storage side of things, whereas our commercial customers, our small and medium-sized enterprises, tend to be storing record stock. And whether they're upscaling or downscaling, there becomes a need for the product. And the fact that our product is very flexible, both in terms of the actual spaces which are let, as well as the payment terms, means that our product is very popular with them. The balance of demand, as I was started off by mentioning, comes from the domestic or residential user base being you and I. And whenever there's a life-changing event, there becomes a need for people to store their goods. And people's goods are very important to them, along with our health and our relationships with other human beings. People's stuff is very, very important to them.
I agree, certainly. Thank you so much for coming through, Gavin. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today, but we certainly will be having you here. A lot more to talk about those plans that you mentioned in terms of acquisitions that you may have in the pipeline. A big thank you to Gavin Lucas, Chief Executive of Stor-Age.